The many lochs and rivers in Scotland are said to be overflowing with evil and foul creatures from myth and legend, those that would attack and drown any human that strayed too close to the riverbank. The great kelpies were known to lure men to their death. The fua would live on a diet of human flesh. But not all water spirits are bloodthirsty monsters. Some are only marginally evil. The Shellycoat. One day, in the middle of winter, two friends set out on a journey from Kilmarnock to Glasgow. The road was long and cold. It would only get colder as the day went on, and the pair were desperate to reach their destination before nightfall. So against their better judgment, they took a shortcut. This quicker route would take the pair down the bank of the Crawfordland River. This area was known for strange happenings. The path was now seldom travelled, and those who would travel it did not always reach their destination. So with a great amount of trepidation, the men went forward. Not far down the path, the pair heard a faint noise. Both stopped dead in their tracks and listened out to see if they could hear it again. Suddenly it returned, and a lot louder. Someone was calling for help. The travellers rushed to the riverside and peered up and down the river, but there was no trace of anyone. The sound came again, more cries for help, and the sound of splashing, but this time it came from further up the river. The pair, in much panic, headed in the direction of the sound. As they continued up the river, the sickening smell of rot and stagnant water filled their nostrils. They reached a clearing and once again searched the river, but there was nothing to be found. There was a third, loud cry and splash. Now the sound came from downstream. Again the pair hurried with the hope of saving the drowning man. This wild goose chase continued for many hours. Each time they got close, the sound would move, but neither of the travellers were willing to leave the poor man to a cold, watery grave. By nightfall, they were on the verge of tears, broken with fatigue and frozen to the bone. It was then the truth was revealed. Standing in front of them, in fits of laughter, a small, ugly, goblin-like creature. There was an evil smile on its wicked face. Its body was covered in a great coat made with oysters, scallops, and other shells. The men, with a feeling of utter defeat, now knew exactly what had happened. They had been tricked by a devious Shellycoat. A curious and mysterious figure is the Shellycoat. Some say it is related to the Goblin or the Bogle. Others suggest it is a misunderstood water spirit. The Shellycoat is often depicted as an ugly, crooked monster, often described as a hunched feral creature in a large shell-covered coat, from which it draws its name. The Shellycoat has a devilish and cruel sense of humour. It is known to rattle its shell-laden coat to distract passing strangers. It rejoices in the confusion of others, wasting their time and playing with their minds. The Shellycoat can commonly be found in creeks, lochs, and rivers all throughout Scotland, but it was also thought to make an appearance in Germany. In his treatise on Germanic mythology, Jacob Grimm stated that the Scottish goblin Shellycoat is one and the same as the German Schellrock or bell-coat. He came to this conclusion after researching a tale about a home sprite. This specific home spirit served the monks of the Mecklenburg monastery for over 30 years. It would cook, clean, knit, and sew for its masters. It was described as a thoroughly good-natured spirit, and for all its work, it would only demand a coloured coat of bells. The domestic nature and pleasant personality would seem to be at complete odds with the wild water spirits from Scotland. But to Grimm's credit, he may have been suggesting that the two were goblins, perhaps in the same family as brownies, redcaps, and other bogles. What is clear from his reference to the Shellycoat is that knowledge of the beast was widespread, even out with Scotland. Although the Shellycoat is devious and enjoys the suffering of others, By its nature, it is not a violent creature, and rarely if ever attacks its victims. There was, however, one Shellycoat, known to be far more sinister and more powerful than any other, the Shellycoat of Leith. This particular Shellycoat was thought to have claimed the life of a drunken visitor. He was said to have done this by challenging the drunken man to a game of football, and did not stop playing until the poor man died from exhaustion. The creature was thought to live under a large rock which sat in the Leith docks. It was known as the Shellycoat's Rock. The fearsome reputation of the Leith Shellycoat was included in James Grant's 1979 book, Old and New Edinburgh, where he describes the creature as a sort of monstrous fiend, gigantic but unfathomable, who possessed powers almost infinite, who never undertook anything, no matter how great, with which he failed to accomplish. His swiftness was that of a spirit, and he delighted in deeds of blood and devastation. It was this horrific description that led to an old practice in Leith, where the locals would challenge each other to prove their courage by approaching the Shellycoat Rock at sunset and running 3 times around it while chanting, "Shellycoat, Shellycoat, gang awa hame, a cry na your mercy, a fear na your name." This tended to be followed by a swift escape from the rock's presence, just in case the Shellycoat answered the call and was none too pleased about being disturbed. At the beginning of the 19th century, a new dock was to be constructed in Leith. The plans were drawn up by John Rennie the Elder. He was the leading civil engineer and was faced with a problem, as right in the centre of the proposed new dock was a large rock. The Shellycoat's Rock had to be destroyed, but many of the workmen were against disturbing the rock due to its reputation. The reluctance of the workers revealed just how established the folklore of the Shellycoat was in Scotland at the time. Out of respect for the dreaded Shellycoat of Leith, the rock was moved by crane to lie in the sand, not far from the new dock. This was not an easy task at the time. The rock was large and heavy, and was not simple to move. It would have been far simpler to blast the rock with dynamite, which was the original plan. Today the rock is an unknown relic of the past. It now sits at the entrance of the Seafield Sewage Works. Now it tends to be referred to as the Penny Bap Stone, due to it looking like a small bread roll. The once great rock and home of the Shellycoat now sits forgotten and ignored. There are no signs, there are no information boards, there are no longer challenges of bravery. It's likely that most people nowadays do not know why it sits there, or why the workmen so long ago dared not disrespect the rock. Thank you for listening.